Hey everyone, welcome to the Pre-algebra 1.2 video. We're talking all about powers and exponents today. Alright, so what is a power? Well, is it this? No, maybe. Is it this? I certainly hope not. No, a power is actually the result of repeated multiplication, and it looks like this. There. So a power is just the result of repeatedly multiplying the same number. Okay, so this thing right here is called the power, and we know that to be 5 to the third power. Okay, now we say that it has an exponent of 3, but sometimes we call it the third power. But actually, this whole thing is the power. Both the 5 and the 3 combined are called a power. Now, the other name for this, more common, is the exponent. Okay. And then if that's the exponent, well then this thing right there would be the base. Okay, so a power is made up of a base and an exponent. And we could also write this power in repeated multiplication, okay, as we talked about in the definition, 5 times 5 times 5, and we would call these things here factors. So really I'll change my definition there to say same factor instead of same number. Okay? And I forgot, we'll call this thing item number 1 and move on to item number 2. Alright, so we can start with something like this, 12 to the first power. We're going to go from words to actually numbers. Okay, so 12 to the first power would just be written like this. 12 is going to be the base, and the first power, put a 1, okay, an exponent of 1. 3 to the fifth power, so 3 is the base, fifth power would be 5. Now we have some other special circumstances too, though. If I said 4 to the third power, well, the base is 4, and that is written like that. But I could also write it as 4 cubed. Okay, those two things both mean the same. Okay, both of those right there mean 4 with an exponent of 3. Similarly, we have squared, right? What is squared? Well, if I had 7 to the second power, that'd be written like that. But that we can also write as 7 squared. And we could, they're right there. Okay, so both those mean the same things. To the second power and squared are the same. To the third power and cubed are both the same. All right, so why don't you take a second, I want you to try these. These are 3 separate ones, and I want you to write the product that you see in each of these using an exponent. So pause the video, try it, play it when you're done. All right, so this one here, I see 13 being multiplied 4 times. So 13 is the factor. So it's the base, and then it's being multiplied 1, 2, 3, 4 times, so 4 is my exponent. 0.4, I see it being multiplied 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times, so my answer is going to be 0.4 to the fifth power. And when we're working with decimals, we always want to keep them inside parentheses. It helps to organize things and keep things as they should be. And then also m times m, well, m is the base being taken to the second power, so it's m to the second power, or m squared. So there, and there you go. All right, real quick, just as a side note, let's talk about 0, okay? And when you take 0 to the third power, for example, well, that means 0 times 0 times 0, which of course just equals 0. But also 0 squared, well, that means 0 times 0, well, that also equals 0. So 0 to any power also, or always, equals 0. Same thing, similar thing with 1. 1 to the fifth means 1 times 1 times 1 times 1 times 1, but that of course equals 1. But 1 to any other power, like 4, well, 1 times 1 times 1 times 1, that equals 1 also. Okay, so just be aware of that. You might encounter that here and there, so just know, 1 to any power, it's going to be 1. So why don't you guys try this one? I'm going to give you this expression, and I want you to evaluate it when x equals 0.5. So go ahead, pause, try it, play when you're done. All right, well, what that means is I'm going to put in this 0.5 everywhere I see an x. So I'm going to change this to 0.5. And when I do decimals, I like to do them in parentheses, 0.5 and parentheses to the fourth power. Okay? Now, what does that mean? Well, it means 0.5 times, well, 0.5 times 0.5 times 0.5. And we're just going to multiply here. Okay, it's the only operation going on. Multiplication there, there, and there. So we'll just go from left to right. So 0.5 times 0.5 is going to get you 0.5. 0.25. But we still have these other 0.5s to bring down. And we'll do this now. 0.25 times 0.5 is going to get you, I should say 0.125, parentheses. Bring him down. And lastly, our 0.125 times 0.5 is going to get you a final answer of 0.0625. And that's your answer. So we use exponents a whole lot, right? Especially when it comes to talking about geometry. All right, and specifically, I want to talk about cubes today. I can use a Rubik's Cube because I know some of you guys like to play, but also a GameCube. Why? Because it was my favorite console I ever had as a kid. I used to play Star Wars, Rogue Squadron on that all day long, and probably didn't do my chores like I should have. So don't do that. Don't be like me. But anyway, let's talk about this Rubik's Cube here. Let's say this side is, let's say it's 4.1 inches long. Okay. Now it's a cube, so that means that the other side of the base is also going to be 4.1 inches long, and also the height is going to be 4.1 inches long. So if I want to know the volume of a Rubik's Cube, how can I do that? Well, remember, volume is like all the inside space, right? If it were hollow and I could fill it up with water, that would be the volume when it's full to the top. But we know that volume is actually found by taking length times width times height, and that's volume of a cube. Now, the cool thing though is that when it comes to a cube, instead of writing length times width times height, I can just write one of the sides cubed. Why? Because if I take length times width times height, I'm going to be multiplying the same thing 3 times. So in this case, finding the volume of this cube, this Rubik's Cube, would be like saying 4.1 cubed, right? So what does that mean? Well, it means 4.1 times 4.1 times 4.1, right? And so if you do that, 4.1 times 4.1 would get you 16.81. Bring that down, times 4.1. And we just finish out by taking 16.81 times 4.1, which would, of course, get you 68.921. Okay? Now, I know this is called a cube, so it probably gives us a little bit of a hint as to what our units are going to be. But let's think about this. We were talking about exponents, and I said, what's x times x times x? And you would say, oh, it's going to be x cubed. Well, what did I do here? Well, I actually took centimeters times inches. I'm sorry, inches times inches times inches. Right? So just like x times x times x equals x cubed, if you take something with inches times something else with inches times something else with inches, you get inches cubed. So what's our label down here? Well, it's going to be inches cubed. And that would be the volume of that Rubik's Cube with sides of 4.1 inches long. All right, guys, that's all I have for you. Look forward to seeing you in class, talking more about exponents and powers and bases and all that good stuff. I'll see you later.